Hey YouTube, what's up? Dr. T here from St. Petersburg, Florida. In September of 2017, Elon Musk gave details about SpaceX's mission to Mars before the International Astronautical Congress in Adelaide, Australia. Here, part 1 of 3 from that presentation. We're currently watching the last shuttle launch of the series of the adventures of shuttle going into outer space.
Firing chain is armed.
15.
Go for main engine start. T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. All 3 engines up and burning. 2, 1, 0, and liftoff. The final liftoff of Atlantis on the shoulders of the space shuttle. America will continue the dream.
Roger, roll, Atlantis. Houston now controlling the flight of Atlantis.
All right, so welcome everyone, and I'm going to talk more about what it takes to become a multi-planet species. And just a brief refresher on why this is important. I think fundamentally the future is vastly more exciting and interesting if we're a spacefaring civilization and a multi-planet species than if we're not. You want to be inspired by things. You want to wake up in the morning and think the future is going to be great. And that's what being a spacefaring civilization is all about. It's about believing in the future and thinking that the future will be better than the past. And I can't think of anything more exciting than going out there and being among the stars. That's why. So let me go into more detail on becoming multi-planet species. This is the updated design for well, we're sort of searching for the right name, but the code name at least is BFR. Probably the most important thing that I want to convey in this presentation is that I think we have figured out how to pay for it. This is very important. In last year's presentation, we're really searching for what the right way, how do we pay for this thing? We went through various ideas, Kickstarter, collecting underpants. These didn't pan out. But now we think we've got a way to do it, which is to have a smaller vehicle, still pretty big, but one that can serve, one that can do everything that's needed in the greater Earth orbit activity. So essentially, we want to make our current vehicles redundant. We want to have one system, one booster and ship that replaces Falcon 9, Falcon Heavy, and Dragon. So if we can do that, then all the resources that are used for Falcon 9, Heavy, and Dragon can be applied to this system. So that's really fundamental. So let's see, what progress have we made in this direction? So last time you saw the giant tank, that's actually a 12-meter tank. And you can see the relative scale of it. It's 1,000 cubic meters of volume inside. That's actually more pressurized volume than an A380, just to put that into perspective. We developed a new carbon fiber matrix that's much stronger and more capable at cryo than anything before. And it holds 1,200 tons of liquid oxygen. So we tested it. So we successfully tested it up to its design pressure. And then went a little further. So we wanted to see where it would break. And we found out where it would break. It shot about 300 feet into the air and landed in the ocean. We fished it out, but we've now got a pretty good sense of what it takes to create a huge carbon fiber tank that can hold cryogenic liquid. That's actually extremely important for making a light spaceship. The next key element is on the engine side. We have to have an extremely efficient engine. So the Raptor engine will be the highest thrust to weight engine, we believe, of any engine of any kind ever made. We already have now 1,200 seconds of firing across 42 main engine tests. We fired it for 100 seconds. It could fire for much longer than 100 seconds. That's just the size of the test tanks. And then the duration of the firing you're seeing right now is about 40 seconds, which is the length of the firing for landing on Mars. The test engine currently operates at 200 atmospheres, 200 bar. The flight engine will be at 250 bar, and then we believe over time we could probably get that to a little over 300 bar. The next key element is propulsive landing. So in order to land on places like the moon, where there is no atmosphere and certainly no runways, or to land on Mars, where the atmosphere is too thin to land on, even if there were runways to land with the wing, you really have to get propulsive landing perfect. So that's what we've been practicing with Falcon 9. So this is just a series of landing videos. I think these are quite mesmerizing. But we now have 16 successful landings in a row. And that's with so it's 16 in a row, and that's with really without any redundancy. So Falcon 9 lands on a single engine. The final landing is always done with a single engine, whereas BFR will always have multi-engine out capability. So if you can get to a very high reliability with even a single engine, and then you can land and then you can land with either of two engines, I think we can get to a landing reliability that is on par with the safest commercial airliners. So you can essentially count on the landing. It's not like you want minimum pucker factor on landing. So, and it can land with also very high precision. In fact, we believe the precision at this point is good enough for propulsive landing that we do not need legs for the next version. It will literally land with so much precision, it will land back on its launch mounts. So the launch rate is also is increasing exponentially. Particularly when you take tanking or refilling on orbit into account, and taking the idea of establishing a self-sustaining base on Mars or the moon or elsewhere, seriously, you need ultimately thousands of ships and tens of thousands of retanking or refilling operations, which means you need many launches per day. You really need to be looking, in terms of how many landings are occurring, you need to be looking at your watch, not your calendar. So while this is quite a high launch rate that we're talking about here, by conventional standards, it's still a very small launch rate compared to what will ultimately be needed. But just for those who are unfamiliar with how many orbital launches occur every year, it's approximately 60 orbital launches occur per year, which means if SpaceX does do something like 30 launches next year, it'll be approximately half of all orbital launches that occur on Earth. The next thing is a key technology is automated rendezvous and docking. So in order to retank or refill the spaceship in orbit, you have to be able to rendezvous and dock with the spaceship with very high precision and transfer propellant. So that's one of the things that we've perfected with Dragon. Dragon 1 will do an automated rendezvous and docking without any pilot control to the space station. Dragon 1 currently uses the Canadarm for the final placement onto the space station. Dragon 2, which launches next year, will not need to use the Canadarm. So Dragon 2 will directly dock with the space station. And it can do so with zero human intervention. You just press go, and it will dock. Dragon has also allowed us to perfect heat shield technology. So when you enter at high velocity, you'll melt almost anything. The reason meteors don't reach Earth is they melt or disintegrate before they reach the ground, unless they're very big. So you have to have a sophisticated heat shield technology that can withstand unbelievably high temperatures, and that's what we've been perfecting with Dragon, and also a key part of any planet colonizing system. Next slide. So Falcon 1, this is where we started out. A lot of people really only heard of SpaceX relatively recently. So they may think, say, Falcon 9 and Dragon just instantly appeared, and that's how it always was. But it wasn't. We started off with just a few people who really didn't know how to make rockets. And the reason I ended up being the chief engineer or chief designer was not because I wanted to, it's because I couldn't hire anyone. Nobody good would join. So ended up being that by default. And I messed up the first three launches. The first three launches failed. Unfortunately, the fourth launch, which was that was the last money that we had for Falcon 1. The fourth launch worked, or that would have been it for SpaceX. But fate liked us that day. So the fourth launch worked. And it's interesting, today is the 9th anniversary of that launch. So I didn't realize that until I was told that just earlier today, but it's a very emotional day, actually. But Falcon 1 was quite a small rocket. When we're doing Falcon 1, we're really trying to figure out what is the smallest useful payload that we could get to orbit. I thought, okay, something around half a ton to orbit would be able to launch, that can launch a decent-sized small satellite to low Earth orbit, and that's why we sized Falcon 1. But it's really quite small compared to Falcon 9. So Falcon 9, particularly when you factor in payload, Falcon 9 is many times more, it's sort of on the order of 30 times more payload than Falcon 1. And Falcon 9 has reuse of the primary booster, which is the most expensive part of the rocket, and hopefully soon reuse of the fairing, the big nose cone at the front. So we think we can probably get to something like somewhere between 70 and 80% reusability with the Falcon 9 system. And hopefully towards the end of this year we'll be launching Falcon Heavy, which Falcon Heavy ended up being a much more complex program than we thought. It sounds easy. Let's show Falcon Heavy actually. It sounds like it should be easy because it's 2 first stages of Falcon 9 strapped on as boosters. It's actually not. We had to redesign almost everything except the upper stage in order to take the increased loads. So Falcon Heavy ended up being much more a new vehicle than we realized.
So, I hope you enjoyed the first part of this 3-part presentation.